Welcome to IP Concerns Deep Dive, the podcast version of our IP Concerns blog from Cascade Law Group. Here, we unpack intellectual property-related, real business and brand protection topics in a way that actually makes sense, no legal experience required.
Picture this. It is the 4th of July.
Oh, the best day of the summer.
Right. So the grills are fired up in the backyard. You can already smell the hot dogs and the charcoal.
Oh, yeah. And the sky is just getting dark enough for the fireworks.
Exactly. And the whole country is looking ahead, gearing up for this massive, once-in-a-lifetime milestone. America is turning 250.
It is a profound milestone, honestly. We are approaching a quarter millennium.
Yeah, since a group of independent entrepreneurs, builders, and philosophers gathered in Philadelphia and signed the Declaration of Independence.
Naturally, when we reflect on what has actually sustained the American experiment since 1776, our minds tend to go straight to the dramatic imagery.
Right, the battlefields, the soaring rhetoric.
Yeah, the sweeping political philosophy about liberty and justice.
The stuff that gets carved into marble monuments, basically. But today, we are taking a deep dive into something entirely different.
We really are.
We are shining a light on an unsung hero, quietly woven right into the DNA of the nation. It is something so foundational, yet so often overlooked.
Overlooked when we talk about how this country actually functions day to day, for sure.
Yeah, right. We are looking at the actual mechanics of how a fragile, experimental young republic managed to transform itself into a global economic powerhouse.
And to really understand that transformation, we have to look past the political break from British rule. We have to examine the radical independence declared from the British economic model. Like, we celebrate throwing off the monarchy, but the economic shift is where the daily reality for citizens completely changed.
Which brings us to our incredible source material today. We're drawing from an excerpt titled The Constitutional Architecture of American Innovation.
A great text.
Our mission for this deep dive is to explore how one single, very specific legal mechanism fundamentally changed the game.
Yeah, and more importantly, why understanding this mechanism is absolutely crucial for you, the listener, if you are building something new today.
Whether that's a small business, a tech startup, or just, a new way of doing things. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Because the best way to look at the U.S. Constitution, at least in the context of our sources today, is not just as a lofty philosophical document. Think of it more like a startup's founding operating agreement.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It wasn't just a manifesto. It was a highly practical, nuts and bolts business plan for a brand new country.
And the founding generation was intimately familiar with those nuts and bolts, right?
Oh, absolutely. They weren't just theoretical philosophers sitting around in parlors debating John Locke all day.
Right.
They were highly practical people.
Right. They were business owners.
Business owners, agricultural innovators, creators. I mean, they were running printing presses, managing complex supply chains, surveying land.
Getting their hands dirty.
Exactly. They understood firsthand that a free society couldn't actually thrive on ideals alone. A society needs economic independence.
Right.
And crucially, it needs structured incentives for innovation. If you want people to build a strong nation from scratch, you have to give them a concrete reason to build.
And that brings us to the British system they were operating under before the Revolution.
All right, the old way.
Under English rule, the concept of a patent, the right to own your invention, was entirely top-down.
Totally top-down.
The text points out that patents were historically treated as royal favors. They were essentially monopolies granted purely at the sovereign's whim.
And what's fascinating here is the psychological and economic bottleneck that kind of system creates.
Because it's all about who you know.
Exactly. If the sovereign, like the king or queen, controls who gets to benefit from a new idea, then innovation isn't about ingenuity at all. It's just about access.
Right, you had to be at court.
The crown could grant a monopoly on something as basic as the sale of playing cards, the production of salt, or the weaving of a certain type of cloth.
Wow, just salt.
Yeah, salt. And they didn't do this because someone invented a brilliant new method of making salt. They did it just to reward a political ally or, pay off a royal debt.
That is wild. It's like a velvet rope at an impossibly exclusive nightclub, and the king is the bouncer.
That is exactly what it was like.
If you are just a regular person with a brilliant idea, maybe a new way to process wheat or a better design for a plow.
But you don't have the right aristocratic connections.
Right. You are not getting past the rope. Your idea either dies with you or it gets quietly taken by a wealthy lord who does have the king's favor.
And then they reap all the financial rewards of your hard work.
So unfair.
The architects of the American system had lived under that exact bottleneck, and they completely rejected it. They recognized that if you want a tidal wave of progress, you cannot have the king acting as a bouncer to the economy.
Right. You can't rely on royal favors to drive industry. So they engineered a radical break. They decided to democratize innovation entirely.
And they didn't just write a separate law later on. They embedded intellectual property, or IP, directly into the Constitution.
Right into the foundational blueprint of the country. We are talking about Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8.
The big one.
The text explicitly gives Congress the power to secure exclusive rights to authors and inventors to promote the progress of science and useful arts. So what does this all mean for the everyday citizen back in 1776?
Well, it was a total paradigm shift in human history. By writing that specific clause into the Constitution, the founders were making a binding legal promise to the everyday citizen.
A promise that your ideas matter.
Legally assuring you that if you took a risk, if you spent your precious time and resources to build something new or even improve an existing idea, it would legally belong to you.
It completely removed the concept of innovation from the exclusive grip of the elite.
Yes. It made it a tangible, defendable property right for everyone.
It literally turned the nightclub velvet rope into a public library card.
That is a great way to put it.
If you had the idea and the drive, the system was suddenly open to you. It didn't matter who your parents were.
Or whether you had a title. And think about the physical reality of colonial and post-revolutionary America for a moment.
It was tough.
Incredibly harsh environment. Resources were scarce. Capital was almost non-existent for the average person.
Right.
Taking time away from farming or just basic survival to tinker with a new invention in a shed was a massive, life-altering gamble.
You could lose everything.
So the constitutional assurance that your invention was your property was the necessary counterweight to that immense risk.
It was the government functionally saying, your mind has tangible value, and the full weight of the legal system will protect the fruits of your labor.
Exactly.
But it's one thing to write a legal promise on a piece of parchment in Philadelphia. The real question is, did it actually work when everyday citizens tried to use it?
The million-dollar question.
Right. The true test of this constitutional architecture is the real-world impact we've seen over the last 250 years.
And the historical record shows it unleashed what the source material describes as a tidal wave of democratized ingenuity.
A tidal wave.
Once you treat intellectual creativity as a tangible property right, you create a self-sustaining ecosystem. You build an environment where a single great idea has the power to elevate anyone.
Completely, regardless of their background or social standing. When you look at the last 250 years, you see this playing out with some incredible visionaries.
Oh, there are so many good examples.
Take Josephine Cochran, for example. The history here is wild.
Yeah, she is fascinating.
He was hosting dinners and got tired of her fine china getting chipped by servants washing the dishes by hand.
A very relatable problem.
Right. But instead of just complaining about it, she went out to a shed behind her house, measured all her plates and cups, built wire compartments, and engineered a motorized wheel that squirted hot soapy water over them.
She essentially invented the first commercially successful automatic dishwasher.
Which is amazing. Under the old British system, a major manufacturer could have just walked into her shed, looked at her design, and started mass-producing it without giving her a dime.
Oh, entirely. But because of the American IP system, she secured a patent. She owned the idea.
And that ownership is what allowed her to pitch her machine to hotels and restaurants, right?
Yeah, eventually founding a manufacturing company that became a massive success. The patent system gave her the legal shield necessary to negotiate with wealthy investors.
Without fear of being robbed of her own invention.
Exactly.
Then you have the Wright brothers. We often picture them as these mythical figures, but they were literally two bicycle mechanics from Ohio.
Just regular guys.
They didn't have massive government grants or a university laboratory. They figured out how to build a flying machine in their bike shop.
But the key is they didn't just patent a flying machine.
No, they protected their highly specific method of three-axis aerodynamic control.
Which is a crucial distinction. They patented the mechanics of how to steer and balance the aircraft using wing warping.
Because if the IP system hadn't existed?
Well-funded railroad barons or massive shipping magnates with endless supplies of steel, wood, and cheap labor could have simply watched one of their flights at Kitty Hawk.
And just copied the steering mechanism.
Built a fleet of airplanes immediately. The Wright brothers would have been a footnote in history.
Instead, their intellectual property forced the world to license their ingenuity.
Right. And the scope of who could participate expanded dramatically over time, too.
Definitely. The text points to Maria Van Britten Brown.
Her story is incredible.
We are talking about a pioneer living in Queens, New York in the 1960s. She worked as a nurse, her husband was an electronics technician, and they lived in a neighborhood with a high crime rate and notoriously slow police response times.
She just wanted to feel safer in her own home.
So she engineered a system with a motorized camera that could slide up and down the front door to look through different peepholes.
Connected to a television monitor in her bedroom.
Complete with a two-way microphone to speak to whoever was outside, and an emergency alarm button to contact police.
She basically invented the first home security system.
Way ahead of her time.
And what makes her story so powerful in the context of this legal architecture is how she protected it. In 1966, she filed for a patent.
Because the patent office doesn't evaluate a social hierarchy.
No, it evaluates the claims of the invention. As a Black woman in the 1960s, she faced profound social and financial barriers.
But the patent system provided a standardized legal mechanism to establish undisputed ownership of her brilliant idea.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I look at this incredible list of inventors: Alexander Graham Bell reshaping global connection, the Wright brothers risking their necks on sand dunes, Josephine Cochran taking on massive debt.
Yeah, it wasn't easy for any of them.
Right. If the law had their back, didn't these creators still face massive personal and financial ruin by taking these risks? Did the law really level the playing field or just give them a piece of paper?
This raises an important question, and it gets to the very heart of how free markets actually function under this Constitution. You are absolutely right. The law did not and cannot eliminate risk. The Wright brothers very easily could have crashed and died.
Sure.
Josephine Cochran's company could have gone entirely bankrupt if restaurants refused to buy her machine. The market could have completely rejected Maria Van Britten Brown's security system.
As too complicated or something.
Exactly. Intellectual property law does not guarantee commercial success.
Right. The patent office doesn't buy your product for you. It doesn't write you a check.
What it does, however, is guarantee that the reward of success cannot be legally stolen. And that distinction is everything.
The upside is secured.
Yes. If you are going to risk physical injury, financial ruin, and years of your life tinkering in a shed or a bicycle shop, you need to know that if you do succeed, some massive corporation can't just swoop in.
Just copy your exact design and mass produce it.
Exactly. By securing the upside, the IP system provides the ultimate incentive for a free society to thrive. It doesn't level the playing field in terms of who has money to start with.
But it strictly levels the playing field in terms of who owns the rights to a good idea.
Precisely.
That guarantee of ownership isn't just a relic of the 18th century, though. It's not just a history lesson about flying machines and early dishwashers.
No, it's very current.
In fact, if you look at how the federal government is handling the upcoming 250th anniversary right now, they are utilizing that exact same legal shield.
As we approach the semiquincentennial, which is the official slightly exhausting multi-syllable word for the 250th anniversary.
Good luck spelling that one.
Right. But we find that IP law is just as vital today as it was in 1776. The entity actually organizing this massive historic milestone is the U.S. Semiquincentennial Commission.
And behind the scenes, their operation is an absolute masterclass in modern corporate branding and intellectual property defense.
Totally.
The irony here is just incredible. The official nationwide celebration of America's freedom and independence is heavily trademarked.
Go ahead.
The word marks, the specific logos associated with the America 250 campaign, they're all fiercely protected trademarks owned by the commission.
It's true.
It is exactly like throwing a massive neighborhood block party to celebrate freedom, but making absolutely sure you've legally trademarked the design of the invitations and the napkins.
And they have to do it. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it makes perfect sense.
How so?
Well, without trademark protection, anyone could print the America 250 logo on cheap counterfeit merchandise, or use the branding to scam people with fake event tickets.
Oh, right.
Trademarking the logo ensures they can control the quality of the celebration, prevent fraud, and ensure the message remains unified across the entire country.
But it creates this undeniable, almost uncomfortable parallel for anyone listening to this right now.
It really does.
If the federal government is protecting its branding for a historical milestone, Why would you treat the IP for your own neighborhood startup as a secondary administrative task?
Such a good point.
Why do so many founders put off filing their trademarks or protecting their unique processes until they have the budget?
Too often, entrepreneurs view filing for a trademark or a patent as a bureaucratic hurdle. Feels like paperwork.
Just red tape.
But the America 250 example proves that protecting your brand identity is non-negotiable from day one.
From the very start.
Whether you are launching a massive digital tech platform, a new line of baked goods in your local neighborhood, or organizing a national celebration, your brand identity and your unique processes are your most valuable assets.
It's not just filling out forms for the government, it's putting up the load-bearing walls around your house.
That's exactly it.
It's defending the literal plot of land your idea is built on.
Safeguarding your intellectual property is the literal defense of a business's future. It is how you secure your piece of the American dream today.
Ensuring that the work you put in actually accrues value to you.
And not to whoever happens to have a larger marketing budget.
Exactly. When we weave all of these threads together, the through line is incredibly clear.
It really is.
We started with a constitutional clause drafted in 1776, a practical operating agreement that deliberately broke away from the kings and the bouncers of the old world.
The velvet ropes.
Right. We watched that legal promise empower individuals from two brothers in a bike shop to Maria Van Britten Brown in Queens to claim absolute ownership of their own ingenuity.
And we see it right now, today, in the trademarked logos of the America 250 celebration.
Treating intellectual creativity as a tangible property right isn't just some legal quirk. It is the true underlying engine of the American dream.
It is the architecture that allows everything else to stand. Without that specific legal assurance, the profound innovation we take for granted simply wouldn't have had the soil it needed to grow.
People need to know they can harvest what they plant.
People simply will not plant seeds if they know someone else is legally allowed to harvest the crop.
Beautifully said. But before we let you go, there is one final lingering concept that builds on everything we've talked about today, and it completely flips the script.
Oh, I like this part.
We've spent this entire time discussing how the Constitution protects the creator, how it secures that exclusive right to reward the risk taker.
The incentive structure that makes the whole machine run.
Right. But consider this entirely different angle. What happens when those protections eventually expire?
Ah, yes.
If you read the exact text of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, it specifically states that these exclusive rights are granted to authors and inventors for, quote, limited times.
The expiration date. The moment the patent runs out.
Think about how much of our modern world relies on the fact that these rights do not last forever. The foundational mechanics of Alexander Graham Bell's telephone,
Or the aerodynamic principles the Wright brothers figured out.
the mechanical structure of Josephine Cochran's dishwasher, or even the classic literature and music that define our culture.
Absolutely.
These things only became universally accessible, affordable, and foundational to the next layer of human innovation once those original patents and copyrights expired and entered the public domain.
The public domain is essentially the compost heap of history's greatest ideas.
I love that image.
The protection allows the original plant to grow, but the expiration forces it to break down and enrich the soil for the next generation of builders.
So the question to mull over as you go about your day is this. Is the true genius of the American IP system not just in fiercely protecting the idea for the creator, but in eventually, inevitably forcing that idea to be shared freely with the entire world?
It's a beautifully balanced mechanism,
Yeah.
and it continues to quietly shape every aspect of the world around us.
It's the ultimate handoff between the individual and the society. The creator gets their reward, and eventually, humanity gets a new building block.
A win-win, really.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the architecture of innovation.
It's been great.
Next time you smell those fireworks and hot dogs on the 4th of July, you'll know exactly what's actually powering the celebration. Keep building, keep protecting your ideas, and we'll catch you on the next one.